We don't have to do this. You know that, right?
What's the other option?
Go back to Tommy's. Just be done with this whole damn thing.
After all we've been through. Everything that I've done. It can't be for nothing.
The Last of Us Part 2 is a game we don't deserve. From its initial release, I've played this game all the way through 4 separate times, and I grew more fond of it after each playthrough. It's so ambitious and full of great ideas that there is no way in hell I could ever hate this flawed masterpiece. I am happy to see more and more people are becoming fans of this game, appreciating it for what it is. However, I still see a lot of hate directed towards this game, and here's why I wanted to make this video. I want to discuss why I love The Last of Us Part 2. Before anything else, I just want to quickly mention the gameplay. I think the level design is stunning and immersive. The exploration is super fun and necessary. You'll run out of supplies real fast. The amount of detail just blows me away. I'm honestly really impressed with how smart the AI is.
Come with me. Let's check.
Ambush! Right here! Found you! Come here!
This quick.
She's out of ammo!
And the combat improves and expands on its predecessor in many different aspects. Also, when you kill someone, you kill them. It's fucking brutal. Now, let's cut to the chase. I'm here to dive deep into the story. If you played through the whole game and you still hate this revenge story, I encourage you to reconsider. I'm not claiming this game is perfect. It is often messy, especially in terms of pacing, but I do think that's by design. Revenge should never be told in a neat, consistent way. The journey of both Ellie and Abby is violently depressing and brutal. We don't get any satisfaction, we only suffer. I'd like to take a closer look at this game, more specifically the controversy. I am here to defend Part 2, so what did people hate about Part 2? Well, let's get into the meat of things and start with the Joel thing. It's easy to see why countless fans were outraged, but I think this scene is perfect. It never fails to break my heart. Before I get into reasons why this scene is so effective, let's address the so-called problems with this scene. As you can see, these hilarious comments suggest that Joel telling Abby his name was out of character, and I'll agree, this is out of character for Joel. Well, the Joel we knew at the beginning of the first game. Back then, he was a husk of a man, just going through the motions, you know.
Surviving.
Killing people with trucks and whatnot. But, over the course of that game, Joel finds his purpose, Ellie. He finds his humanity. I think it makes complete sense that Joel would tell Abby his name. It was just some slip-up that got him killed. People will say that he deserved a better death. And no, Joel did not, nor did he deserve a heroic death. Joel got what was coming.
Police, get what you fucking deserve!
That might sound harsh, but did you guys forget that Joel brutally massacred the Fireflies and therefore prevented a vaccine? A goddamn vaccine that would save humanity? kind of a big deal. He was never going to have a graceful death. His past would eventually catch up to him. I love this scene, not just because it was a bold move on Naughty Dog's part, but because it sets up one of the best revenge stories ever told. The intensity of watching this adored character die gave me literal fucking heart palpitations.
Joel, please get up!
Joel's death instantly riled me up. This is a character I've grown so fond of, I had to take a step back and process his loss. It's so effective because it immediately gets the player on board with Ellie's mission. At this point in the game, all I wanted was what Ellie wanted, to kill Abby and avenge Joel. But, as I'll talk about it later, that too changes. Before I move on to my next point, can I just say how spectacular Ashley Johnson's performance is? It's not just one of my favorite performances I've ever seen, but it also brings The Last of Us Part 2 home, much like how Troy Baker did with the first game. Joel's death wouldn't have been nearly as effective if it wasn't for Johnson's performance. Her pain and desperation latches onto you, filling your heart with rage and sorrow. It's devastating. Since Part 2 decided to do this so early in the game, I had the impression that anything could happen. And since I'm here complimenting Baker and Johnson's performances, their cover of Wayfaring Stranger is heart-wrenching.
I'm going there to see my father. I'm going there, no more to roam.
Moving on to the Abby controversy.
You don't get to rush this.
Let's say we've been playing as Ellie for roughly 12 hours, and now, all of a sudden, we're playing as the woman who killed our beloved Joel. Yes, you are meant to feel conflicted. Why are we playing as Abby? Dear God, why? Well, because this is just as much of Abby's story as it is Ellie's. They are two sides of the same coin. This is something I love that everyone else seems to hate. This game is not afraid to challenge the player. When you take control of Abby, yes, you should feel upset, and yes, that is the point. The only thing that bothers me about Abby is the response from the so-called fans. In my experience, the more I played as Abby, the more I understood her. Abby has a really interesting story too. She was just a normal girl until her dad died by the hands of Joel. On that fateful day, Abby only had revenge on her mind. It was all she thought about until she killed Joel. Maybe you can never forgive her for what she did, but just try to understand her. Personally, I found it easy to root for her. Her part of the story is incredibly engaging, and it has the best world building and best set pieces in the game. It fucking rocks. Despite this and her countless redeeming qualities, people still hate her, and I mean hate, which is funny to me, because in a twisted sense of irony, Abby became much like Joel. Both suffered from a major loss, their morality slipped for years because of it, but eventually, they met someone. That someone made them human again, giving them a sense of purpose. Everybody loves Joel, yet Abby gets nothing but hate. If you don't like Abby, you simply don't like interesting characters. She savagely kills my beloved Joel, we understand why, and to be fair, it's extremely reasonable, and then she loses fucking everything. Great character. You know how I said I love that this game challenges the player? This is by far the greatest example of that. Yes, I love that Ellie lets Abby live, but this wasn't my initial reaction. Ellie sacrificed so much, committed horrific acts of violence, and I felt robbed of the kill. Yet, after much reflection, I think this ending is genius, and also really, really depressing. So, why did Ellie let Abby live? I still don't really know the answer to this question. It's ambiguous as to why Ellie let her go, yet I think Pearl Jam's Future Days says a lot. The player is on board with Ellie's revenge quest until we see Ellie drifting away from everyone. After separating herself from Joel, Dina, and the player themselves, Ellie becomes unrecognizable. At this point in the game, we've played as Abby for a large portion of time. While she's the one responsible for killing Joel, Naughty Dog does a great job making her a sympathetic character. She goes through hell to save Lev and spares Ellie, even though she killed everyone she ever knew and loved. As Ellie left for California to find and put an end to Abby, I realized I'm not really playing as Ellie anymore. Ellie lost her identity to the point where killing Abby doesn't even mean anything to her. She's completely broken.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. Everything I have found here, I'm not found by myself. Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. All my stolen missing parts, I've no need for any more. 'Cause I believe, and I believe 'cause I can see our future days, days of you and me.
As she's reminded of Joel during her fight with Abby, she decides to let her go. What once was her motivation to kill now had the opposite effect. All she was reminded of was Joel's humanity. Ellie says,
No. Just take him.
at this moment, Ellie isn't talking about Lev. Killing Abby wouldn't have brought him back. Some may think it's cruel that at the end of the game, Ellie can no longer play Joel's guitar, but the imagery is so powerful. It wasn't just hate that motivated Ellie. She pushed away Joel for years only to begin to make amends the day before his death. She felt guilty. Ellie thought she owed this to Joel. You see, there are no villains in this game, just people. These people are not just trying to survive, but trying to find peace within themselves. This happens with Joel. It was a selfish act to take Ellie from that hospital, but he loved her, and as he confesses later, he would do it again.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
Same principle applies to Abby. She thinks killing Joel is going to bring her peace, but it doesn't. She continues to experience trauma just like Ellie. Yet, unlike Abby, Ellie doesn't realize that the only way to live again is through forgiveness and acceptance. She doesn't learn that lesson until the very end of the game. Ellie ends up losing everything because of it.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself.
How could you say this game has bad storytelling? It's so poetic that Ellie ends up saving Abby. Abby lost everything because of revenge. Then Ellie lost everything because of revenge. But Abby spared her. And Ellie did the same. While hatred can spark a cycle of violence, just one act of kindness can lead to another. That's some good-ass storytelling. Fuck you. After a confrontation with Abby, Ellie can now put the memories of Joel to rest. She now has the ability to move on, live a life worth living. She can do what Joel would have wanted for her. However, the game does end with Ellie confronting her worst fear.
I'm scared of ending up alone.
She's beyond desolation, yet as we close on this chapter of Ellie's story, there's a glimmer of hope. As she sets Joel's guitar down, it indicates a surrender to vengeance, a declaration of love and forgiveness. Ellie chooses to let go.